Well, good evening. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Thank you so much for that very kind introduction. Much of it probably not well deserved, but nevertheless, I do really appreciate the welcome. I want to thank the Niagara Foundation and Brother Farhat for accommodating my schedule. You may notice that I'm not usually in my traditional attorney garb. I'm wearing what's called this is known as sherwani, and this is a normal South Asian outfit for weddings. So I'm going to be going to a wedding right after this soon. So I wanted to thank you guys for accommodating my schedule. Thank you. Tonight, we gather in the spirit of gratitude, reflection, and dialogue. Thanksgiving is rooted in a specific historical context and has grown really into a major celebration that really transcends any single tradition or culture. It offers us a moment to pause and reflect not only on the blessings in our lives, but also on the shared values that unite us as members of one human family. The Quran reminds us in chapter 49, verse 13, O mankind, we have created you from a male and female and made you into nations and tribes so that you may know one another. Indeed, the most honored of you in the sight of Allah or God is the most righteous of you. Now, this verse emphasizes that our differences of nationality, culture, or faith are not meant to divide us, but rather to enrich us. And they are opportunities for learning, understanding, and building bridges. So this evening, we honor that spirit of knowing one another, of celebrating both our diversity and our shared humanity. And the life of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, offers timeless lessons for fostering interfaith harmony. And some of you may not know an incident that occurred during his lifetime in which a group of Christians came to Medina and visited him. And these are known as the Christians of Najran. And not only did they visit and engage, but they spent 3 days and lived in the mosque where they were fed and they had a relatively peaceful discussion. I say relatively because they actually had disagreements about theology and Trinity, etc. But nevertheless, they left on good terms. And this is an example of the kind of effort that historically Muslims have engaged in, and this is exactly the tradition that the Niagara Foundation is continuing 1,400 years later. He also emphasized, meaning the Prophet, that the importance of loving and serving our neighbors when he said, he or she is not a believer whose stomach is filled while their neighbor goes hungry. Now, in our modern era, the Islamic scholar Fethullah Gulen has championed interfaith dialogue as a cornerstone for peace. He teaches that, quote, dialogue is not simply a choice, it is a necessity for humanity to live together in peace, unquote. Of course, he also emphasized the importance of education, empathy, and collaboration between people of all faiths, recognizing that mutual understanding is the antidote of fear and conflict. Now, the call for justice is, of course, universal and not rooted in particular religious traditions. Dr. Martin Luther King once said, in the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. Now, this profound truth challenges each of us, particularly those of us from a faith tradition, to speak out against injustice wherever we see it. Justice is not only a legal concept, it is a moral imperative that invites all of our traditions. Whether in the face or pursuit of racial equality, religious freedom, or human dignity, our faith traditions call us to stand on the side of truth and fairness. Let me share a particular story that involves some of these precepts that I've mentioned earlier, particularly in the darkest days of European history. during the Holocaust. In 1943, in Nazi-occupied Albania, Albanian families, inspired by their Islamic values of compassion and justice, protected thousands of Jewish refugees. They adhered to the principle of Besa, an Albanian code of honor that obligates individuals to protect others even at great personal risk. In fact, there's a story that one Muslim family hid a Jewish family in their home for months, sharing food, shelter, and hope. And then later on, after the war, when they were asked, why did they risk their lives? They simply responded, it was our duty as Muslims and human beings. This remarkable example of interfaith solidarity reminds us that acts of courage and compassion guided by faith have the power to overcome even the darkest forces of hate and division. As we gather here tonight, let us reflect on these stories and teachings. They remind us that gratitude, as mentioned in the video earlier, is not just about counting blessings, it's about sharing those blessings. It is about standing in solidarity, uplifting one another, and ensuring that justice and compassion prevail. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, who marched alongside Dr. King in Selma, said it best when he said, "When I marched in Selma, my feet were praying." This powerful message reminds us that our faith must not remain confined to words and rituals. It must really move us to action. Action that heals, uplifts, and unites. On this coming Thanksgiving, let us commit then to embodying the values of justice, loyalty, and especially courage in our lives. Let us honor the teachings of all our faith traditions by serving our neighbors, welcoming the stranger, and standing together against injustice. And let us give thanks not only for the blessings that we have received, but to be a blessing to others. Now, let me just sort of think parenthetically here, a little bit of a story here. When we were growing up, of course, when we learned about Thanksgiving in grammar school and so forth, we were told that Thanksgiving is rooted in a very important incident between the Pilgrims and the Native Americans. And this harkens back to the Plymouth colony in 1621. And in fact, that did occur. The incident occurred whereby Native Americans and pilgrims coming from Plymouth colony that was established in Massachusetts actually came together and celebrated a Thanksgiving, what we call a Thanksgiving dinner, to help one another. The natives helped the pilgrims to learn how to be able to farm in this territory and protect themselves from the cold and so forth. And that story then gets transmuted to the 19th century as an example of cooperation. But what's important here is what's not mentioned is that subsequent to 1621, when that incident occurred, later on, there was something called King Philip's War of 1675 and 1676, in which war occurs between these two people, ultimately leading to the destruction of Native Americans and them having to go to reservations and so forth. And it wasn't until 1789 that President George Washington, the first president of the United States, declared a national day of Thanksgiving to celebrate the U.S. Constitution. But it had nothing to do with Plymouth. And it wasn't really until Abraham Lincoln in 1863 proclaimed Thanksgiving as a national holiday, using it as a call for unity. Why? Because we were on the eve of Civil War. So the legacy here, ladies and gentlemen, is that the initial peace treaty and cooperation between the Pilgrims and the Native American tribe represents a perfect example of unity and mutual understanding and cooperation. At the same time, the eventual conflict underscores the importance of vigilance and courage in maintaining justice and equity in relationships between our respective communities. So let's not take this moment and this opportunity for granted. this doesn't just automatically happen. It requires a set of principles, ideals, and hard work from organizations such as the Niagara Foundation, such as elected officials, such as Mayor Hayes, Raja Krishnamurthy, and others who are here to promote this kind of engagement. So with that, I want to thank you for the opportunity, and I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday with your family and friends, and may God bless you all. Thank you very much.